Well, good afternoon to you, Scott Baker.
Mikey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
I was actually interested. I was listening for the tonality to make sure. Is he doing okay?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Thanks.
Okay. Well, for Wednesday afternoon, November 26th, the field note today is field note number 1630, and the title is Getting to Know, and we have know in quotes, faster. We're talking about kind of any situation. It could be a discussion, a decision. It could be maybe even a life challenge where it's like you can, if you just thought for half a second, you can see an inevitability. So let's just skip all of the hassle in the middle and get right to it.
Yeah.
But yet we don't do that. We kind of just wrestle and wrestle and wrestle, and then like, no. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I do like the way that this is presented. I am amazed so often that many of the behaviors that we talk about on how to lead almost always apply to leading up as well. And there's a few details in this one.
Yeah, it is.
Kind of pull out the stops to lead up.
Because this is not only about the leader who might shut down a project, but it's about the team and how they might keep the leader updated in a best way to kind of just find out, is this worth our time before you tell us no later and waste everybody's effort?
Right. Because oftentimes for teams like that who might be living in a situation where they have a tendency to hear no a lot, they would have maybe a strategy to try to get their way by, circumventing the normal processes, right? Sticking things in skunk works and then just kind of doing them on the side until they get too big to fail on their own, right? And that might be a way that feels like, well, it's effective and it was a good idea. But if I had to explain it to my boss, they would have said no so quickly that I would not have had the opportunity to be able to show them. And so like there's this weird middle spot for people that need to figure out how to be effective in their jobs if they have someone. And sometimes this comes up with the boss. If you have a leader who needs to actually see things in order to envision them, like they actually need to see because no matter how much you talk about it or how much you kind of describe the advantages of going a certain direction, unless they actually see it, which means what? Which means you got to get the designers in, which means you need the developer in, right? There's all kinds of other people that you need to mobilize just to put together a pilot for the boss to be able to understand how it's actually going to work. Then it's like, okay, me mobilizing my team just to be able to produce a pilot that may or may not.
Right.
That sounds defeating as well, right? And so I'm not sure if this field note puts into effect like a middle ground of saying, if I'm used to skunk working everything and actually hiding it from my leader, right? Versus this is probably the right way to be able to do it. But
yeah. Now, and sometimes I don't know what the technical definition of skunk works is, but sometimes those are things that might be projects that work, but never actually really come to light. Like nobody's going to really pay attention. I mean, you'll never know that they're working well, but you might. I've certainly done this in a number of different fashions. Tried to kind of get something rolling, so it had a bit of an inevitability to it, and got people on board. And I've had those things shut down. I told one of those stories the other day about at a TV station where I kind of piloted a new idea, and it worked extremely well. And I just thought they're going to keep doing this, and then they were like, "We're going to study this for a year." And then I was like, "All right, you're never going to get back to this." And so I just left and went to a different organization. But I like that the field note is tough on the leader, in the sense that it's saying you might be the one who's always kind of coming in. They got working on something and you're like, no, that's not the way we're doing it. No, right? And it could be your pride. Maybe you actually see something that there is a strategic problem. And so there is a quality here that's a challenge to say you need to be in tune with your teams on a more consistent basis to kind of know what's going on and get involved earlier. Right. And then the challenge does go back to the team. So that's the question, which is the pressure in this field note on the team is keep your leader updated early and often so that you don't get to that point of surprise where they shut down the initiative or the endeavor, because it was clear all along. And you felt like that you're building the right kind of support. But yet sometimes it's exactly what you described, where the team is like, if we actually had this conversation, I know this leader or this team of leaders, and they're just going to be like, nah, not interested. Whereas we could just kind of do this for a while and maybe it would take off.
Well, we know that it's true that the main reason that people resist any endeavor is because they feel like there's not been enough buy-in from an individual. I wasn't consulted, so how do you expect me to have buy-in? That's true when leading down and when leading up as well. And that's what this points out more than anything, especially if you're dealing with the type of leader who is described as more imperial, right? Who likes to be able to make, command decisions about most things. For you to like surprise somebody like that with a great idea, it's not going to work, right? And so in the same way that you need to get buy-in from down below to make sure that you can actually operate, you need to get that buy-in from above as well, which means that it does take a lot of work, but you need to set up those gates in such a way so that it feels like your leader has buy-in at all the crucial moments, right? And so whatever that is, and it's kind of weird that we're talking about this imperial leader because it's this imperial leader who is like, we probably all have somebody exactly who comes to mind when we're talking about this, is like and why is it that they are saying no as often as they are? And it might be that you're just not getting their buy-in at crucial points along the way, and you're trying to. And what are we doing? Are we hiding the fact that we are struggling through some things, that it's not completely smooth sailing? Like no leader would expect it to be smooth sailing. So of course you need to put those gates in, those thresholds in that say, and if nothing else, it just helps you to be able to define for your leader that you're thinking things all the way through.
Right. Yeah.
Of
Yeah. And
course
and that's the kind of dialogue that we'd all like to be involved in, where it shows a sophistication of thinking and all the rest of that. And there are ways if you're on the team and you're generating these kinds of ideas. The field note is pretty direct about specific things. Let's have checkpoints and timelines, and it kind of starts to sound very official in the way that the field note kind of lays it out. And there may be, and maybe even in most cases, that might be necessary. That might be the way that organization works. But there are other ways to do it that even if you didn't want to go into total skunkworks mode, or we're going to keep this kind of, in the shadows, that you can start to condition a leader in a way, because, we mentioned this earlier today on a different discussion that you were monitoring. How many problems come from not respecting territory? And so sometimes it's whether the team feels like you've given us this territory and now you're taking it away, or the leader feels like, look, this is my company. I own it. My grandfather built it. I inherited it. And you're like making, willy-nilly decisions. And so you didn't keep me informed, and maybe your idea is great.
Yes.
But because you've kind of crossed my territory or made me look bad to, the executive vice president, because you kind of bypassed, me, that I'm going to be resistant.
Yes.
So you can have this go in both directions, but you can do things that are kind of a nuanced middle ground. And I've done this on occasion. You've watched me do it, where if you just start to just talk about something very naturally, it's not like, okay, we've got this big idea and we really need everybody's buy-in. You say, there's a thing we're going to be trying, and there's this, and then you kind of don't talk about it for a week or two, and then you try it for a little while, and you say, we got some good feedback on the thing we were doing, and you just move on to the next item, and like anything, most times you kind of have to have it hit. Like you don't embody a habit until you've done it for they always say 30 days or 3 weeks or whatever. You don't apprehend a new idea or a new initiative until you've heard it a bunch of times.
Right.
And sometimes if you just bring stuff up, just casually, naturally, 10, 15, 20 times, you're not making a big deal about it. You're just making references. All of a sudden, people start to they start to think it's their idea. Maybe that's a good thing.
I know, but I totally get what you're saying. But because you and I are in a moment where we're wondering whether or not a specific project that we're going to be able to do is going to be able to continue. We're wondering, I wonder, was that the right way to do it? Was that the effective way to do it?
Could be
only because
in that case,
we seeded the idea in a casual way, and so maybe it's being treated casually back to us in a way that we don't appreciate, right?
Well, yeah, and these are things you can look in hindsight on all kinds of decisions, and so I think there are many cases where you say, I had an idea and it got shut down. You'd be like, boy, if I had just kind of kept that quiet, could have probably gotten it done. In other cases, you'd be like, I needed to elevate that, and I think that's just a little bit of pattern matching and good judgment. Like, can you get good advice or advice around like how do I work this inside of our 40,000 person organization, or if you got a team of 40 people, it's a little bit different, and so you've got a lot of things you've got to factor. But hopefully that if you have the goodwill of the organization in mind, you're thinking like a principal, meaning if I own this company, would I want this project to be done? Would this be the thing that's in the best interest of the endeavor, the ideas, the machinery, whatever's going on there? And if it is not for just your own aggrandizement, of claim, of fame and praise and whatever else, if you're actually doing it for the right reasons, then I think there's a lot of leeway that's given by people in an organization for people to kind of create that environment. Right. And that's what we're asking even the best leaders to do that are reading this, is to say, you do have, as it says in the field note, you have some decision rights. Right? You can exercise veto power here. So the question is when and where and how, and can you get to a place where you're in a dialogue around it, where it doesn't feel like you're the hallway monitor and you're being like, all right, have you done your check-in with me? Well, then I'm okay with it, because that's just going to make everybody feel like, it's Mickey Mouse.
Right. So I'm trying to figure out, is there a certain gate that you should cross as to when these ideas in this field note should actually be implemented? We've mentioned skunkworks. The way I define skunkworks is that it's zero budget, right? There's no real resources that are being allocated in any significant way. It's actually a $0 budget that I'm asking to actually accomplish it. So even in the way that you and I started these conversations was very much a skunkworks type of thing. We weren't using any kind of streaming software. We were just doing them on X, and we did them for more than a year and a half, just for 15 minutes a day to kind of repeat what the field note was, right, and do that kind of thing. So at what point should we have said deadlines, budget expectations, time and resources? Yeah. Like, we didn't think of that as like a serious thing, right? Well,
a lot of this is experimentation too, because you've been involved in some very successful things over the decades on social media, and so have I. Right. And so had things that have done billions of page views and hundreds of millions of views and all of that. And then other things you just say, well, I don't mind if only 10 people are listening or watching, because that's not why we're doing it, right? Now, my definition of skunkworks, and I think you're right, sometimes it's something that's not getting a budget. I actually usually go define it back by, I think it was a military idea. It was like, this was the thing that was off the books. So it didn't officially get money, but it was being slid money for development, sometimes in spycraft and other areas. And without being very specific, I have known government employees pretty well in my life who perhaps did some of that.
Yes.
And would use that phrase. And in fact, it's actually, if I remember this right, it's an official name of a thing that was done at Lockheed Martin, which I sometimes think about, because we have Admired Leadership has an office in Philadelphia, and sometimes I'm in that area and there's a Lockheed Martin plant, and I'll be at a hotel nearby and I'll go for a run in the morning and I'll run by and I'm like, skunkworks, right? Yeah. So I think what's really going on in there, and basically, as you know, I'm looking for alien technology. Right. But whatever is needed, like if we have to reverse engineer alien leadership technology to make Admired Leadership better, we are willing to do it, right? So so in any case, I do think that what you want to have is at least an organization where there are some parameters, there's some guardrails there about, and there's some freedom for people to experiment. Yeah. And we're going to allow people to kind of create energy and enthusiasm around the things that they're energetic and enthusiastic about.
Right.
And a good leader is going to try to amplify more of that and get in the way less,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Right. Fantastic. Okay. Well, for when we're recording this, tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and so have a great meal.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that Andrew told me that he's taking both rolls and dessert this year, so he's upped his responsibility
Okay.
by bringing something sweet as well. You have
wow.
your responsibilities this year are you're providing the whole meal for yourself.
Yeah, they are fluid. I'm cobbling together because I'm in an alternative Thanksgiving sort of plan because of some travel developments that happened this week. But
yeah,
in any case, but we're going to slip one in because I've heard, because we just talked to Randall on an earlier conversation with some of our platform subscribers, that the field note for Thanksgiving Day should be a pretty good one.
Yes, yeah, a couple in a row that are about gratitude in ways that I think are going to be fun to talk
Unusual,
about.
yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Dynamite.
Bye now.
See ya.